So imagine spending like $5,000 on a broadcast quality robotic camera.
Yeah, a massive investment.
Right, and you wire it with flawless fiber optics.
Hmm.
But then the entire system is rendered completely useless by just a single millimeter of wobble.
Oh, it happens all the time. It really does.
Yeah. So today we're taking you on a deep dive into the totally unglamorous infrastructure that makes flawless video conferencing actually possible.
Right.
We're looking at, well, a bracket, specifically the HuddleCamHD HCM-2-BK large universal PTZ camera wall mount.
Which, is literally just a $139 bracket.
Yeah.
But we're pulling apart this specific e-commerce page because it perfectly captures this massive divide in the AV industry. High-end setups, like the ones you mentioned, they rely entirely on these forgotten physical foundations to just function.
They really do.
Hmm.
And the physical specs on this thing read like, industrial hardware.
Oh, totally.
It is made in the USA from heavy gauge steel. It has a black powder coat finish, and it weighs in at almost 3 pounds for a box that's roughly 10 by 8 inches.
Which sounds like total overkill until you remember what a PTZ or, pan-tilt zoom camera actually does.
Right.
These are robotic cameras. They have internal motors that whip this heavy lens around to track whoever's speaking in the room.
Oh, right, of course.
So if this mount wasn't an absolute brick of heavy gauge steel, the torque from those motors would just cause micro vibrations.
And even a microscopic vibration translates to a super shaky, nauseating video feed for whoever you're presenting to.
Exactly.
It's less like a standard shelf and more like the chassis of a tank. It has to absorb all that kinetic energy without transferring even a millimeter of shake to the lens.
Right, and that physical rigidity is paired with strict industry standardization, which is honestly great. This mount uses a standard 1/4-20 mounting hole.
Which is that universal tripod thread size we've all seen on basic cameras, right?
Yeah, exactly that one. So while it is designed specifically for the HuddleCam Air 12X and 20X models, the specs note it accommodates most large-based cameras.
Okay.
We are talking Sony, Panasonic, Cisco, Polycom, and Vadio.
Wow. Okay. Which is a crucial defense against vendor lock-in for you, the buyer. You aren't forced to rip a metal bracket out of your drywall just because you decided to upgrade from, say, a Sony to a Cisco camera.
Yeah, but the physical hardware side of this industry has actually agreed on a standard that works.
But, and this is where it gets interesting, securing the camera to the wall is the easy part. The real friction happens before the mount even ships.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you look closely at the retailer's webpage, a distributor called HDTVSupply, the physical perfection of the hardware just crashes into the digital chaos of buying it.
I am so glad you brought that up because looking at the product description, there is this massive contradiction that honestly makes me super suspicious.
Same here.
The main text promises a 3-year manufacturer warranty, but right below that, literally in a feature bullet point, it proudly claims a 10-year warranty.
Yeah, it's wild. If I'm a B2B buyer dropping serious budget on infrastructure, seeing 2 completely different warranties in the same breath makes me immediately question if this retailer actually exists.
Right.
Or, if it is just some sort of drop shipping scam.
Well, it definitely looks sketchy on the surface, but this is a classic symptom of legacy B2B e-commerce. These distributors manage massive online databases with tens of thousands of items.
Wow.
So database glitches or just lazy copy-paste errors are incredibly common. And if you scroll down to the customer reviews on the page, you see an even bigger reflection of this chaos.
Yeah.
Because the reviews on the page aren't even about this heavy-duty mount.
They are completely unrelated. I was reading them, and one person is fuming about waiting 10 days for an out-of-stock item.
Exactly.
And another is complaining about rebooting control boxes because their LAN camera, which is a camera operating over their local area network, just keeps deleting itself from an iPad control system.
Yeah, it is a mess. But framing those messy reviews against the actual product tells a much bigger story about the reality of AV infrastructure.
How so?
Well, the hardware is highly solved. It is reliable, standardized, heavy-gauge steel, but it gets bundled into the exact same chaotic storefront as complex, glitchy networking gear and software.
Right.
The physical reality of the mount is totally detached from the digital reality of integrating and actually buying the system.
So the HCM-2-BK is basically a fortress of a bracket. It's universally compatible and does exactly what it needs to do to keep your video feed rock solid.
Yeah, definitely.
But actually acquiring it means dealing with the wild west of AV e-commerce, where warranties contradict each other
Yeah,
and the reviews are just a dumping ground for networking complaints.
right. The reliable hardware gets completely dragged down by the unreliability of the software and the storefront.
Yeah, leaving you with this to ponder. If a simple 2.8-pound piece of bent steel is what physically guarantees our ability to communicate via high-end video, how much of our modern, hyper-complex digital world is entirely dependent on the most basic, easily overlooked physical infrastructure holding it up?